And for those of you who are dancing in the background, because I can't see you through this magical camera that I do have, but for those I can see dancing in the background, including myself, because one of these days, like I told everybody, I'll have the camera on while the music is going. I'll throw on the surround sound here inside the studio and just get down with everybody else. But welcome, it is Tuesday night here, May, what are we at, 17th, for our second episode in session with Gia, Jesse, and Dylan, who's joining us, who I had to get super duper permissions in order for him to come on here. It's crazy everything I have to go through just to get him on. And also Gia. So I know there's it's two of them. I can take one from the other, but just to put the names there closely in perspective, so you guys know, Gia had joined last week on the show as she was making the comments and sent out the invite to her and to anyone else who views the shows. If you guys always want to come on, please send an email. You guys can go right to broadstsouth.com, click on the email there and send me, just, hey, I'd like to come on, participate, and let me know what you guys think as far as what comes to the show. But last week, when we left off, which I'll get everybody here on screen here, we talked about meme busting, which we did towards the end of the show. I got to make sure I remember to do it again this week. So I will have that up there. But also, it's a different type of show where you guys don't feel like it's, you're going to a psychiatrist where you can sit down, enjoy, listen, maybe learn a couple of things. And again, just give some feedback through the comments and everything else, because we always appreciate any comments, any suggestions, or anything else you guys have out there. So with all that being said, it is the second episode of coaching sessions around here that I forgot, and I was going to bring it up again, but I know I'll think about it. As far as, let me see if I still have the picture around. I should have the picture. Give me a second before I bring anybody on here. Here we go. Coaching sessions, just like you see in the intro there, leaning into our triggers, challenges, beliefs, and yes, the BS. And the BS part is the stuff that we deal with every single day. That's why I said this is completely different from what we normally do on a Tuesday night on our sports show. Of course, on Thursdays, you guys can join us, and we have a good lineup for Thursday, so do not miss that show here on Thursday night. But with all that being said, we thank you all for tuning in once again tonight for Coaching Sessions, episode number 2. I'm Angel. Welcome to Broad Street South. Now, I will gladly welcome in our coaches into the room and into the house. Well, husband, wife, how's everyone this evening?
Wonderful.
We're awesome.
We're doing good.
We're ready to rock and roll.
Ready to rock and roll. Some deep dive into dating tonight, right? Wow.
Yeah, we're going to pick up from where we left off.
Hopefully,
Yeah,
everybody's going to be swiping right for us and not swiping left or swiping whatever which way to keep us on their screens. So
exactly. Well, hopefully, just to remind everyone, don't swipe right.
Don't
hopefully,
swipe.
everybody just
Stay right here.
Just stay right here.
We're going to navigate right through.
Exactly. We're planning on having a good show tonight, and it is warm again here in Tampa. We're now hitting the midsummer temperatures down here, even though we're not in summer yet, because today we get up about 89 degrees, and it's just going to get nothing but hotter from here on out. But it's all right, though. We enjoy it. And joining me tonight, again, with the special permission from the Toronto Blue Jays, from his agent, his author, the man, the myth, the legend, the local Tampa correspondent, Dylan Spalding, also known as the Flow Show Pod. What's up, Dylan? How are you?
I'm doing good. Happy Tuesday to everybody out there. I know I had a lot of stuff going on. I had my agent, contacting with you, Angel, and somebody was supposed to bring me a coffee here. I have interns working for me. I apologize, Angel. I have some things I'm getting here done in the studio, if you will. But it's so great to be on with everybody, and happy Tuesday. Can't wait.
Well, listen, no problem. And again, we thank your agent. We know you're a very busy man, but it's okay. You're like the Dos Equis guys, even though you don't drink, but you might end up getting. And joining us today, also, Gia Smith Perez. Thank you for, first of all, again, accepting the invite, coming on with us. And thank you for viewing the show for the very first time last week. So welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here. And happy Tuesday.
Not a problem. And I'm thinking this is my client to start everything off as I'm representing the Philly of the South shirt. It says, nice t-shirt, way to rep the club colors, buddy, go Eagles. Thanks, Mike, for tuning in. And my boy, Abdul, my boy from Georgia. What's up, brother? Listen, we're trying to do something different here. So tune in. I need to get to Georgia as well. So this, by the way, which I consider family, but I have not seen him since the last time we worked together. So it's been a good, I want to say maybe a good 5 to 6 years. But he's down in Georgia now, a great friend, always positive, doing good things, doing better things ever since we left out of Philly. So it's always good to see a good friend, not just of the show, but a good friend that I know personally. And I hope that him, his family, and everyone are doing well, because that man is, and his mom is phenomenal. She's still back in Philly, phenomenal person. So I'm glad to see that he's tuning in tonight. So appreciate everyone tuning in. And last week, first of all, the first episode, very successful, over 40 downloads at this point when it comes to the audio side of the house, which is nice and always ends up gaining momentum as the weeks go by. Then more and more people start finding out. So that's nice to see that we had over 40 downloads. But not only that, the good positive feedback that we ended up getting was that people like the different spin on things than what you normally get from a psychiatrist. And not knocking any psychiatrist whatsoever, but a lot of times when you go there, you hear the same thing before we get into our dating. But you go to a psychiatrist somewhere and you say, explain to me what's going on. Well, doc, my wife left me. The kids walked away. The dog says he hates me. And what am I supposed to do? Let's talk about it. By the way, here's a prescription. Thank you. I'll see you back next week. Because honest to God, what ends up happening is, depending on your doctor, you have between 18 to 20 weeks that basically they can milk you for those 18 to 20 weeks. And they'll tell you what you want to hear. And at the end, it's always a miracle. It's like, we're the 20th week. I see, Gia, we made great progress. I see that you're no longer curling your hair. You're now straightening out your hair. This is great progress, because that's what they want you to hear. Versus when you go to someone who's more on the healing hands part of the world, they actually physically listen and then accept what you're saying and then give you feedback, so you're actually having a one-on-one conversation. And that's what we want everyone to take away from this particular show. Because, again, the husband-wife duo that are in the Bahamas, first of all, living the most marvelous life is the beautiful thing. But with the input that we had last week, I just want to say thank you, everyone, again, who tuned in. It was nice. So starting off this week, which we left off last week, and we're going to try and make this, what's the word I'm looking for here? We described, what's the lady here from the nighttime? She's still on radio. Oh, my God, I'm drawing a blank. And she's down in Florida. She's
right. That's right.
The most
Delilah.
There you go. Exactly. So we're trying to make this as a Delilah type show, but with, she does it well. She's been doing it for many, many years, but we try to roll on from our one subject to the next, so we don't lose sight and thoughts of things that we're doing. So last week we talked about, towards the end of the show, about dating, and it's become pretty much a lost art, where before it used to be that you were intrigued. Like, I'll use Gia tonight on the show. If I didn't know Gia, the best way for me to at least approach her was just, hello, how are you? And hopefully you get at least a chemical response, to put it at best. If I approach her in a different way, or if I'm looking at her side-eyed, or I'm looking at her twisted, of course she's gonna look at me like, who's this clown? Why do I want to talk to him? So it's the conversation we have, because what's it now? Before it used to be, Gia, listen, I just want to know, I don't know who you are, but I think you're very nice and you're dressed very nice. And if you have the time, could I talk to you for a minute, right? Simple.
Right.
That's gone now. Why? Because of this thing. So now, right, people don't know how to communicate, because we see friends and we see people all over the place where they sit in front of the person that are at the restaurant and they, hold on for a second. Yeah, let me send you this text. Why can't you talk to me? Because right here. So I think that part of our life, unfortunately, is gone. And what I would like to see, and especially here from the group here, is why is that now a lost art, where before it used to be the challenge? Like, it was great. Like, to get to know Gia here just in person. The best part is that communication. So like, we get a better understanding. I know what she likes, what she dislikes. These are things that you want to know about the person. But now it's too easy where, well, let me see. Gia can have a girlfriend, and we're going to just make up names here. That could be Becky. So she tells Becky, do you know Angel? Nope. Oh, let's do some research. And then all of a sudden, it's coming through. It's coming through where, what's the word I'm looking for here? It's easier to look for the person up on Facebook or social media instead of finding out who the person is. So I would like to get, I would like to get from you guys. We'll start with the coaches first. What happened to the dating scene, and why is that going away?
What has happened to the dating scene? Well, like everything, I think I like the way you said it's a lost art, really, because dating and relationships, it's an art. Absolutely. Is it a lost art? I don't know. I think maybe it's an evolved art.
Yeah.
Right? Like everything, communication has completely evolved with technology, sometimes for good and sometimes not so good.
Maybe what we did was, as technology came up, we adapted to the technology, and we adapted dating and relationships and connection into the technology, even though that's not necessarily, what it was intended for. And now we get to look back or even be in this present moment and say, it's not the same thing. Walking up to a person, say in a coffee shop, that you might be interested because you find them attractive, and trying to start a conversation with them. We've taken that, and now we have an assumption that it's going to happen inside of the dating app world, mainly because the apps have come out. Is that a true adaptation of the technology to our humanness?
Right.
Maybe eventually, but I think, Angel, by raising this question, I think you're saying, yeah, you know what? It's a struggle now. So I agree.
It's a struggle.
Maybe it's not necessarily that we've lost the art. Maybe we were always struggling with it. But now that we've moved it into a technology base, and now we can literally shut off the connection if we're really uncomfortable.
Right.
You wouldn't just get up and walk away from somebody because you would feel like you'd be judged, and but app wise,
a little more uncomfortable to get up in the middle of the coffee shop and say peace,
right,
rather than just ghost off.
You swipe yourself to the left by just swiping right out of the door,
swiping out of the building.
But maybe that's where part of this conversation actually should sit. Is can we adapt our attempts for connection, our interests in someone else, into the digital world?
Right. How can we adapt our behavior to match the technology, not adapt our behavior to meet the technology?
Right. There you go. Does that make sense?
Yep. No, it makes total sense, because again, it's that lost art, which is true. And I know, like, some people are completely shy. I get it. I have a friend of mine. He needs to have like 5 drinks before we can head out to the dance floor. For me, I'll give me a cup of water and we're fine. My girlfriend and I, we can dance all night long without having not one drink whatsoever. And that's the golden part about it. But it's the same way, using her for even for this purpose. The nice thing was that when we started our communication, was the same way. We talked about different things, what we liked, what we disliked, what life has presented itself. But it's, I guess maybe because we're old school, it's a little bit different versus now, because everybody wants like immediate gratification. Maybe it's one of those other things too, is that they just want to feel like if our life was, I guess, ran like social media, somewhere in the back of our shirt system, we should have the like, or the heart button, the love button, or the dislike, one or the two. But it's hard for people, it seems like, to disconnect from there than to have that natural conversation. And the best way to get to know somebody is just that, because you can look up a profile from anywhere and you may not agree with the profile, but you don't know the person behind it. So it's easy for anyone to judge it, versus it's harder to find out the truth, because someone could say something and it may not come out. And we talked about this a little bit last week as well. It's how you present the conversation, the tone of the conversation. And that starts it off either in a good way or in a bad way. But I think now, because we've lost, again, that art of communication, it's easier for someone just, again, throw up their phone, say whatever they have to say, and that's it. And even sometimes you can read a text message and be like, did they say something like throwing some shade towards me, or am I supposed to take it a whole different way? So I think, to me, today, more importantly than anything else that's going on in society, is for people to get to know each other a whole lot better and have an understanding. And even if you come from different walks of life, learn about that person's walk of life. So therefore, you could make a new friend and learn something else in the process. So Gia, I want to go to you for a second as well, because when you end up adding to the comments last week on the show, and then you're here this week, And we talked about that, like the different tones in people's voices sometimes. And we know that people, to communicate something now, for some, it's really easy. For other people, someone may say, like the other day I was asked a question, hey, I look pretty good for 60, huh? And it was like that cut off guard for a moment, like, yeah, you're holding yourself up pretty well. And it's hard because you don't know what to say in that moment. So if you're talking to someone, Gia, and whether it's making a new friend, maybe getting into a dating relationship, it could be your husband, whatever the case may be, is it harder now for, I guess, maybe today's generation versus people that were maybe, whether they were born in the 70s, the 80s, or even the 90s? Because now it just seems like the new from 2000 up is where everything completely changed.
Yes, I really feel like the new generation are just disconnected with society. They're very selfish and all into themselves. And to a certain degree, I believe they're a lot weaker than what we were. Like they don't know how to express themselves. Everything is so hard for them. But they don't realize that it's just a challenge and a part of life. And that for me, oh, I'm a little nervous, guys. Excited. I just feel like, they're really disconnected. This generation, they don't know how to speak. They don't know how to find themselves. They don't know how to find themselves. Right now, we've lived in a society where we've taught our kids to be who we want them to be. So now
Right.
with all of these different options, they don't know who they are. And it's even people from our generation right now that don't know who they are. So they don't know how to get to know people because they don't know who they are. So that's the problem with the communication right there for me.
No, that's a good point. And I didn't even think about that until you just mentioned it, where and again, going back to the coaches here, but that is a good point where how we're raised and how the parents, man, that's a solid point there, because I remember when we were growing up, it was different. What you wanted to be in life, your parents stood behind you, right? Unless it's something that wasn't so good. And then of course they're going to recorrect that for you. But now it is absolutely truth. And I think most kids today, other than Dylan, that I can speak for. And by the way, for those who are just tuning in, Dylan's about 15 years old. He started podcasting when he was 10. So wow. For those who are tuning in, he's the youngest member of the group here. But that's the big thing is that, our parents, we hope that they would show you, and most do show you the right way. But with everything, with what's implicated today, how people are supposed to be talked to, how we're supposed to dress, how we're supposed to do all these different things, maybe that makes it a little bit hard too on the communication aspect of it. So coaches, I like to both go to you here. Is it now where maybe the parents, and a good point by what Gia just described here, are the parents now, maybe, I don't want to say to blame, but are they the ones too that don't show our today's youth the form of communication and the way we used to do things before?
Really great. That is a great question. And I think,
and the answer is yes, but go ahead.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
But I think the answer is yes. And I think we all, I don't think it's just relegated to the new generation. I think, we learn, from our first breath on this planet, it's from our parents. And not only do they model communication, they model emotional resilience, emotional control, connection
to each other.
They model relationships.
Yeah, Genia and I were talking earlier, obviously getting prepped for this conversation, and we hit upon some things very, very much what Gia was just talking about. Think about where relationships are concerned. Where do we learn what a relationship is? There are these models that we end up with when we start becoming interested in being in a relationship. And where are we drawing what we think it's supposed to be from? Well, we draw it from our parents. That's at least the most significant, probably the longest lasting, even if our parents don't stay together. It's those sponsors of life that show us, the interaction.
Sure.
You can have parents who fight a lot, and you very well could develop models about relationships in that's what it's supposed to be like, or that's what it shouldn't be like. And, then we start to compare those to other new relationships, some of the relationships that we end up getting in. So yeah, I definitely think that what our parents do in front of us for those formative years has a lot to do with how we form those models. Not necessarily whether we go towards those models or we use those as our basis, because they may be the antithesis of what it is that we want. Does that make sense?
Yep. No, it does. And
so,
go ahead.
So in addition to that, it starts with the parents, and then we go to school and we learn about relationships with our friends, right? And then we learn about relationships with our friends' parents. And maybe our friends' parents model something completely different, than is modeled in our own home. And then it goes on and on with the books that we read, with the movies that we see, with the characters in the romance novels that we resonate with, right? We get this idealized version, right? Nobody teaches us how to have relationships. There's no handbooks. We're sponges, and we're taking all this information, and like everything in life, we are creating our beliefs and meanings around all this data that we've collected and rarely ever questioning it.
And all of that data ends up becoming the model of the world that we each see, vastly different between each and every one of us. But there could also be a lot of similarities. So when we find ourselves, considering being in a relationship, maybe getting on an app, maybe going someplace where, there's a hope to meet somebody, or you just we find ourselves at a location where we see someone who we're attracted to. We are looking at that person through these models, through these beliefs that we've developed, and they're all over the place. So like Angel, when you were talking about, your girlfriend, and you guys would sit down and you would talk, one of the things that Genia and I strongly believe is that there's an interest factor. You, in those moments, are so interested in who she is, how she feels about things, how she models the whole world versus how you do. And so in those first few moments of those of the beginnings of those relationships, your response is about engaging more information to come out, and it's totally default. But that can absolutely set us up for tremendous success, but it can also set us up for potential failure, because we tend to behave in such a way that puts our best image forward.
Our best selves forward.
Because that's what the models taught us.
Right. The models taught us we need to be liked. We need to impress. Right. So you're on that first date, or you're even on your app chatting, with your potential coffee date, and he says, yeah, I really love Nickelback, the band. And you're like, yeah, me too. They're my favorite, right? They're my favorite band ever, right? And you could care less about, but you're doing these things because you want to be liked. We need to be liked. We need to fit in.
And that's what we were talking.
And then, 3 months later, you're, in a relationship, and you're like, you and your gosh darn Nickelback, I can't stand that band. Why do you keep playing it? Right? But that's what happens. We sacrifice ourselves or for the benefit of something that may or may not be.
Right.
I mean, we're not living our truth, whether we're texting or whether we're connecting. I can't say connecting, because if you're not being authentic, you're not really connecting, you're placating.
And just to throw something in, Angel, that you had mentioned earlier, the instant gratification. Now fit that into this model. What if you don't get that immediate text back, or you don't get the response in live? To your point, that is definitely going to play against, it's going to put us into a spin. We start worrying about whether, we're being judged, if we said the right thing. But that instant gratification, I think, from the technology, that's definitely one arena in which that has penetrated our ability to begin connecting and begin relationships. No doubt.
No, and it's all good points too, because I want to ask now, for those who listen on the audio down the side of the house, although I kid a lot, and of course I do it with Dylan because he is the youngest man in the group here. Again, at the age of 15, which he's not, he is much older than 15, but I like to say because he looks so young. But
he
Dylan,
looks 15.
Yeah, he
Good
does.
job, man. I want your secrets.
No one believes me when I said he started his podcast when he was 10 years old. It's amazing to know he's only 18 now, and it's incredible even to think that he's 18, but besides the point. But Dylan, being the youngest one here in the group, and there's a lot of things obviously the topics as far as we're talking here. I know you're constantly busy with school and everything else, and you barely get the chance as far as when it comes to dating because of how you set yourself up as far as your structure. Obviously, tons of work with 3 teams, kind of juggling at this point. But when you do have that time that you say, you know what, I'm just going to make time for myself or for someone else, is it harder in today's youth age where you guys don't have a normal conversation, but everything is done through social media? Or is it easier, I guess, depending on the group of people that you're with, that you're able to approach someone, just say, hey, I'm so-and-so, how are you? I would like to get, at least from your side of the house, what's it like as far as either the dating aspect of things or even just meeting friends?
I think it's really got its pros and cons, and I think it really depends on the situation that you're in. Obviously, I think one of the big things is we've became so, I think, embedded in like this social media world where we're constantly looking at Instagram and seeing like, oh, this person didn't like my likes today, so does that mean that this person even likes me or not? Like, I think there's so many things that we look at and it kind of takes us away from like actual like real life conversation. And like, I think really just being you and being the type of person that you are will attract so many people. Like for me, I rather have like 10 friends that I really personally enjoy being around and that enjoy me as me. And I think that's one of the big things is like, if you can sell yourself as yourself, I think that really goes a long way. And I think that can help in terms of, being able to connect and have relationships. But in terms of, like trying to connect online and then trying to connect in person, when it comes to online, I've had issues where like, I wonder like, oh, is this person going to, text back to me and stuff? But I got to remember too, it's like, it's not I'm not trying to be I'm not trying to get self happiness or whatever. But I think one of the big things is just, just being able to, again, be yourself, present yourself as yourself, because I think you'll have a better time and a better enjoyment with that person that you're trying to connect with. But that's all I'm going to say, at least in terms of my thing. And again, I've never been in a relationship before, so I only have a certain amount of extended knowledge on this. But at least from, being around friends who have been in relationships and stuff, I think being yourself and, being able to, kind of ease into the relationship a little bit is definitely important, because if you get into it too quick, then it's just going to collapse because there's no structure in that.
No, it's true. And wow. Yeah, now, of course, we don't know. So I will ask if you don't mind. Are you currently in a relationship or are you single?
I'm married. I've been married for 18 years, together for 27.
Congratulations.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's good. So, okay, now we're going to go back 18 years. So this is where we can do the flashback with the flash forward.
27.
So 18 years ago. What is it?
27.
27.
Yeah, we've been together 27, married for 18.
Wow. So you're like my mom and my stepdad they're about the same thing. So they were together for, holy moly, 15 years before they decided to get married, which then was just a piece of paper, but thanks to government and things and blah, blah, blah. Then that's what they chose to do. So it's the same exact thing. But so let's go back then 27 years. When back then, again, in a different era for the 3 out of the 4 squares here, but it was a different era back then. What did you like about when your husband had approached you then as a single man and as a single lady? And what was it that you can say that pulled you in, that you thought, okay, he may not be the one at the moment, but at least he comes from good bones?
Yeah, the conversation, the way he approached me, the respect, looking in my eyes, like he was confident in who he was, even at that young age. And it was amazing. Like, treating me with respect, and, so how you treated my family, my mom, he was the same person all the time. And he was from another city. So he was consistent. He came to visit, all the time. And it was just face-to-face communication, like cell phones weren't a thing then, or like beepers.
That's going way back.
way back. But it was very it was that face-to-face interaction, being able to feel the energy. So that was big for me.
Now, the funny thing is, right? So, Genia and Jesse, the funny part is, as we hear the different parts of the conversation here, we can see how even within this just little room here, how different is the approaches on how you talk to people, how you approach themselves. It's the same way too. Like I could have been, let's just say that if I'd have been talking to my girlfriend initially, but it could have been a lot more scruff, or I could have just looked dirty, even though as a person, I could be good. It's just presentably on the outside didn't look so well. And then she decided to pass me. I'm like, he's kind of dirty. I really don't want to talk to him. And we know it because we've seen people in the streets. Everybody comes from different walks of life and everything else, but you don't know who that person is and what they're all about. And I think that today, that's another big thing because people don't dress the same. I mean, again, if the 3 out of the 4 windows here, when we used to dress up, it was completely different than what it is today. Today is mostly, I call it dressed out because there's nothing left to dress up in because it's all gone. And to me, that took away from when you dated someone, that was the big thing. Like you want to get to know that person and this and that. If that came into the picture many months or a year from now, great, fun and wonderful. But now, again, thanks to this goofy thing, then people are like, oh, did you see that girl? See if you can find her on social media. And again, I don't even, I'll just say an acquaintance that I know, unfortunately, instead of talking to someone, they rather go the roundabout way to find out who that person is and then try and look them up on social media. And as I try to tell this person, that's the worst thing that you can do, because if you come off as a creep and you come sliding in their DMs, man, first of all, the person doesn't want to talk to you because they already think, why didn't you just approach me instead of going through that way? Some people enjoy it, but some other people don't. But to me, it's always the old-fashioned method. Talk to that person, find out all the stuff that's going on. Even if let's say, well, Dylan, it'd be kind of hard to throw back 18 years from you because you're right in that spectrum. But let's say 18 years ago, again, 3 out of 4 windows here, we knew each other, that we were all friends, right? And Gia, before you met your husband, same thing, right? We're going to use that before even you guys got together. And then we built a bond in a relationship with each other that then Genia and Jesse end up getting married. Gia, you got married to your husband. And, I'm now with my girlfriend because we're not husband and wife yet, as of yet, but we're together. But you end up building not only these friendships and you build this bond, but you get to see other relationship blossom as well. Because again, it came down to the communication aspect of it, where no one looked at each other because of this. There wasn't, if you want to look at someone because of their skin color, then you're just, first of all, you're starting off on the wrong foot, number one, because it doesn't matter what ethnicity you come from. If you're a type of person, you can be out and open and talk and everything else. That's already half your communication is already good. The other half is just accepting the person for who they are. So I think today, I wish that people would take the time and sit down. Like everybody goes to either Starbucks or Dunkin' Donuts, right? How awesome would it be that if all of us sat down and we brought our mics and we brought everything else and we just started bringing people over to the microphone and say, hey, listen, we just want to ask you a question. We want to see, we have a social experiment without using phones. We want to find out exactly what you are. How much of those people, and I'll go around the room here, how much of those people do you think would actually physically approach us and then tell us the truth versus, as you guys stated earlier, telling us what we want to hear? So I'll start out with the coaches first.
What do you think?
Okay. How many
would tell us the truth?
You know what? As far as the truth is concerned, it'd be difficult to judge exactly what was the truth. But if they approached us, all 4 of us at that or 5 of us at that table, and they started speaking, I believe that we would eventually create a rapport.
Sure.
Now, and look, just to take something that Gia said, when she was talking about her early days of the relationship, I think there's a key point in that I would splash on top of this question. Gia said, Gia, you said you felt respected by him. That was one of those first things. What we hear, what I hear, is you felt seen by him. And that's that block that sits in between, absolutely in the first moments of a initial connection. But, when Gia said that, that speaks volumes of, that's what allowed her to really think about this guy. And because she felt she was being seen, felt she was being heard. She used the word respect, which I think you can, break apart and see all those little different pieces. And so those people that are walking up to all of us sitting at that table, if we can say the things that allow them to feel heard and to feel seen, I think they would divulge quite a bit of truth to us.
And that's very, very challenging to do on an app.
Absolutely.
Or even texting. I mean, we're talking about dating and communication, but it goes on to all communication, right? You can't there's no real communication through texting.
None.
Right.
None.
Right. Because, and the danger, like, I wanted to circle back to something you had said, Angela, with your friend that, is like the FBI and does all these background checks on whoever, and he's lurking on the social media, doing that thing. We spoke last week of the stories that we tell ourselves, right? So when we're doing that, we're judging for sure, because we're humans, we judge. But not only are we judging and we're creating the story about this person from their social media. Oh, they like dogs, so this must mean this about them. Oh, they have that type of job, that must mean whatever about them. And these judgments, none of them are true. Right. And you can't dispel these preconceived judgments and notions without direct communication and open and authentic communication. And I think that might be the lost art. Would be the open and the honest communication. I mean, we're all dying to be seen and to be heard. That's what we want as humans.
That is that connection.
Do that on your phone.
Yeah, Dylan had said something. Dylan, when you were talking earlier about, what it is that was important, you hit on self-awareness. That's where you went. You went straight to, okay, I know who I am, or at least what the thoughts that I feel about myself now at this point in my life, and I'm going to put those out there. And if I can sit down and talk with other people and encourage them, and they feel comfortable to do the same thing, that's where it grows from. That's that starting point. So many of us in life, and I'm definitely one of them, I didn't have it. I was much, much older than Dylan when it finally started dawning on me, when I started, trying to understand and to learn what this, and I didn't even know the phrase self-awareness, but that ends up being that really key piece. And Dylan, man, at the age of 18, if that's where you're at, no concerns, really. But yeah, I really do think, Andrew, just the question that you posed there, beautiful concept. Can you just imagine? I mean, unscripted, uninvited, just in some, open air coffee shop someplace. There's 5 or 6 mics set up. We're all sitting around and we're having this conversation with an open invite. Come on over and talk to us if you want to talk about relationships or, the dating world. That, seriously, what a great idea, man. You put it together, we'll fly back.
Yeah.
All right. Sounds good.
Yeah, we just can fly here.
Oh, there you go.
Bonfire on the beach. Come on.
Listen.
Then
we probably wouldn't have a show because we would be so chilled and laid back that we were supposed to do. Oh yeah, a show. Yeah. Listen, great point. And I have to update my passport. Unfortunately, it's been a little bit expired, but I've got it updated. Thankfully, it doesn't take too long to get it done. But Dylan, same to you. How would you think? And because you would be you would be the youngest one out of the entire group. Would you feel, because if it, again, vice versa, if it's an older group and they look at us and they'll probably say, you know what? Yeah, they're approachable because we're older and then we can understand each other a bit more. But if it was a group of 20-plus-year-olds, do you think they would actually come over just because you're the youngest one out of the group?
I think so. Again, I think it depends on the person. I really do believe that. And I want to rewrite your kind of situation, or your, I guess you could say your I don't even know you would even describe it, your experiment, if you will. I kind of want to take it and almost make it like a what would you do, like the TV show, what would you do, kind of that
Right.
situation where there's no mics, take away the mics, kind of have like a hidden camera and just see what people do. Because I feel like mics kind of, and I'm just going to say this, obviously being a podcaster and being on a podcast, I've been able to grow comfortable. And obviously, Angel, you know this. When I first joined this podcast, I was scared to death. I didn't, I was nervous of what I was going to be like, what my personality was going to come out into the podcast. But I've been able to really open up. And I think that even translates as well to dating. Even, podcasting really translates kind of to dating in some situation, or even just doing anything on a mic. I mean, it really translates to dating in the way, you just got to be open and be able to communicate and really show your true colors. And I think, if we take away the mics, take away all that, just have like a hidden camera set up, maybe at the top of the room or whatever, and just see what people do. I think that really would give a really good example to see, what really people's true colors are. And I think, just having that confidence in them, to be able to just to talk to everybody and really show themselves as who they are, I think is really what's important. And I think that's what really social media and online talking has really taken away from it, because it's hard sometimes to gain a gauge of how somebody is online and stuff, and being able to then talk to them in person, you really get a good grasp of what their body language is, how they're feeling on that day. You could really uplift somebody's day and really make a special connection, and it really is a great opportunity, I think, to be able to bring new people in.
All right, so before I turn over to Gia here, now I'm going to throw a little monkey wrench into that one then. What if then, since you said take away the mics and put it in a camera, how about we do a 50-50? Then we have the one side where some of us are talking on the mic and just farce. Nothing that has nothing with an actual show. We're just blabbing off about different things. And then the other half, right, as you said, you're just sitting down and having a conversation. Then what part will a person gravitate towards? Will they gravitate towards the BS conversation that someone's having? Or because you're being opinionated, do they go over to your side because they're having an opinion about what's being said on the other side? So Gia, I want to again relay the same question back to you here, because and by the way, is that the hubby that I see?
Yeah.
That's in the comments? Okay.
Yes.
Well, thank you, Mr. Perez, for tuning in. We do appreciate it. And congratulations to many, many years of marriage and being together. That's a beautiful thing. But I want to say, again, if we had that set up, how much do we feel then that now new 50-50 gravitation where people, if, let's say it's me, you, and your husband, and we're talking on the mics, and then Dylan and the coaches are talking about the other one, and it could be whatever. They could be judging us for all we know, just to see how we would get the feel in the room. Where would you think the conversation would lead?
Where do I think the conversation would lead? I don't know, but I would want to be on the side with everybody sitting down talking to each other instead of on the stage. I don't know where the situation would lead. It wouldn't lead very far because nobody's self-aware. They're just saying what they want you to hear. Right. But when you sit, right across from them, you can feel what's real as opposed to what they just say. So,
yeah. Now, the tough part, because it's a good experiment actually to put together, because it would be interesting to see just the faces upon the people and what they think. Because I will tell you, when I was back in Philly, we had times when if it was rare for the 4 supervisors to get together and have lunch somewhere. And so what we used to do a lot of times, just to kind of blow off steam, because we worked for the city of Philadelphia for the bus transportation side, the city bus transportation. There's a lot of stress that you go through because you're different with different walks of life. Some people love you, some people hate you, some people love the bus service, some people hate it. So what we would do when we would get together, sometimes we would just come up with just a random conversation that had nothing to do with anything, just to see what people would end up doing. And we did it at one time. We had Popeyes, and the place was absolutely packed. And we came up with something really dumb as a conversation piece. And out of all people, it was the youngest person in the room that actually approached us and said, "Do you guys know how silly you sound?" And we just started laughing. It was like, that was the whole point. We're supposed to sound silly. We're not being taken serious. Well, then the mom and dad came over and said, "Oh, I'm sorry. I hope she's not disturbing you." I said, "No, no, we were having just a goofy conversation, but out of everybody, your daughter was the one that came up and approached us." She said we were being silly, and that was the whole thing about being silly. But she had to be, I would say maybe about 10, 9 years old, like at max, up until I would say like your mid 30s, but the only person to actually approach us. And people love to hear conversations, because I'd be the first one to tell you, if I'm in Walmart and I hear what's going on behind me, I'll play dumb like, "Oh yeah, M&Ms, I think I wanted those." No, my ear over here is hustling what's going on behind me, because it's what we do. It's human nature. And especially if it's more drama, like I couldn't believe either A, what he wore, what she wore, or this person did this to that person, everything else, because it then leads to another conversation somewhere down the road. Because when you see a friend of yours, you'll be like, "Oh my God, Mr. Perez, you will not believe what I heard in Walmart today." And it just sparks different conversations. But again, it's because the human interaction. And as we talked about when it comes to dating, that's one of those things that I think people miss too, because sure, we could talk about, like you said, Nickelback, or our favorite bands and everything else. But how about that general conversation that we happen to hear throughout the day, that if you need that icebreaker, we're like, "Oh, you know what? I was at the car dealership today, and the guy just, he wanted to sell me this car, and I didn't really want it." And then that generates into another conversation, into something else, and it makes it a little bit smoother. But Dylan, as you said, unfortunately today with the popularity, like if I put something on social media and I get, I don't care if it's one like, one love, one retweet, well, dude, that's great. That's fantastic. I think if I ever hit 10, I might faint, because I've never gotten that high ever. But it's just because I like to have fun and like to enjoy it. It's not something that I need as a comfort. And half of the time it's about the show anyways. And the other times, usually my girlfriend and I are doing, water adventures and doing, different stuff that normal people probably would like to do. They just choose not to do. So it's better to come up with just a simple general conversation that people feel that they have to pull something out, and it's right in front of you. You could be sitting at the same restaurant and walk in and, using Gia, you and your husband, for example, you guys could have been coming for the first time into that same restaurant, right? You're already nervous upon meeting because you already agreed upon this date, but you already see things that are going on around you, and it's kind of like the icebreaker. But the problem is, a lot of times people put on those horse blinders, and all they're concentrating is, what do I need to say to her to make either me look not like an idiot, not make me look like I'm self-centered, but at the same time come across like I'm the coolest guy in the room, and vice versa. And the one thing, and I will get into it, and I'll save this topic for next week, is because, like men, we know there's also women out there that like to say, I don't know. I don't know about this one here. I don't know. And I grew up around women, so I know that half of the conversation goes on, except you don't know it until you get older. That's the funny part. But not, of course, like not all men are the same, not all women are the same. But I find it funny when there's always like that one friend, like, yeah, I don't know about this person. I don't know. And then comes out to be complete opposite. So it's just funny to me that where we used to be before, and as Robert put on screen here, you got to be yourself. They will either like you or not. But the one thing is that makes me laugh is, why can't we just be us? We have to now, because of social media, because of society, because of everything else, we have to now become someone else and then start to welcome people in. Like, okay, yeah, that's when I met you. I had to say the politically correct thing, but this is who I really am. Because anybody who knows me, I will tell you things that either A, you like to hear or not like to hear. And I don't say it like in a rude or bad way or anything else like that. But if we come to an understanding that I feel you're taking advantage of me, or I feel that as much help, support, and love I gave you, and in return, you keep throwing them knives and it keeps sticking, and I got to take it off. And then when you feel like you're your cute self, whether it's male or female, whether you feel like, oh, today I just want to be cute, I want to be happy. And then you take out that knife, but it's still on your side hip. So when you get done, I don't like what he said, and you throw that knife again. So I don't understand where the disconnect is anymore, that we just can't be our own selves, the people that we love, who we are as us and our family and friends, that we have to put on this whole different persona. So the coaches, I'm going to relay that back to you guys. Why is there that big disconnect?
Well, I think actually the disconnect starts within ourselves. I think we don't know ourselves well enough. So we create whatever image the circumstance calls for, whether we're on the date or whether we're with our friends, because we haven't done the inner work and we've never learned, we've never asked ourselves these, vulnerable and authentic and raw questions. If we don't ask ourselves these vulnerable, authentic, and raw questions, how exactly can we connect with anyone else in a vulnerable, raw, and authentic, intimate way, right?
And just consider what Genia just said. If that's how if that exists inside of someone, do they like themselves? Do they appreciate who they are? Do flaws and all? Do they like themselves? Because if they don't, then their ability to connect with someone else is going to be predicated on that dislike. There's going to be all these adaptations to kind of hide who they are, to armor up, to avoid the vulnerability, and to lean into, agreeing with everything that the other person says, liking everything that the other person says,
or even betraying their own voice and own opinions,
absolutely.
not to rock the boat or ruffle feathers, so to speak.
Genia and I were also talking earlier tonight. We're not a great model, I think. We were definitely great models earlier in life as far as how to not do so well and to
relationships,
to carry around the discontent with ourselves, so that when we stepped into a date or tried to get to know somebody, all of those adaptations and all those preventive keep that person back far away so they can't see all the icky crap that I have inside of me, or at least that's how I feel about myself. But what we ended up finding was that once we stopped trying to change who we thought other people saw in us, and actually just started taking a look at, well, why do I feel that way about this thing? Why do I react this way? Why am I acting in such a way that I want someone else to like me? And start exploring those different areas. Luckily we met each other, and it was at that time that we got the opportunity to really consider, what does it take to be completely and truly authentic, to say how you feel, yet not use it as a weapon, to look for understanding, to explore the interest that you see in someone else, because it's not totally hinged on, oh my God, do they like me?
Right.
Or did I say that wrong thing? That was kind of a key learning for us that we love to talk about now, and that we work with clients on specifically, because that was that turning point to make that connection.
Yeah, to make that connection. And we speak to clients about it, and the question we get from all age clients, from our young ones, just starting to date, to older ones, and it's communication problems mostly in relationships, and the communication problems generally boil down to each individual part of the relationship unable to communicate with themselves first.
Yes, key point. So, and that I think ends up being the answer to your question. That's why we have trouble connecting, because we're not listening. We're not spending time going inside and trying to figure out, who are we? Think about that, that's a vast question with a myriad of answers.
Right.
And two moments from now,
you're going to be somebody different.
Some of that's going to change.
Right.
So obviously that works to disconnect.
For sure.
Yeah. And it is tough too, because it's again, going back and I'm going to use Gia because again, it's 27 beautiful years of them putting, being together here. So they've already been through, and not saying by any means anybody's free and clear. Maybe when we all hit the lottery, when we have sufficient money that we know that we can say, you know what, this is paid, that's paid, the house is paid, whatever, kids are going off to college, bam, now we can enjoy the rest of our lives, right? But you're going to enjoy the person you're with, regardless of whatever money you win, you don't win, or anything else. But Gia and your husband, you guys have gone through a lot, whether it's been financially, whether it was just a moment in life, whether it was a passing of a friend, a family member, and everything else. But you guys have hung in there and stuck together because you believe in each other, and because obviously communication. Because if you didn't have the communication, you guys wouldn't have been there, correct?
Right, correct.
So
that's communication.
Man, so that goes again. It goes to show you where it comes about life experience, the people that you know, and sometimes I guess you're going to have friends that people are just going to say, "Why don't you just throw in the towel?" Because it's easier to throw in the towel. When we go through hard times, it's so much easier to give up than try harder in anything, whether it's a job, whether it's something personal that happens with us or anything else. For some folks that that believe in God, it's the same way too. He's always here. But what do? We forget all about him because all the good times are going and we're partying, we're doing this, that, and everything else. And then the time comes, we're like, I'm stuck in a rut. I don't know what to do. I'm still here. Who's that? Oh, right. God. I forgot he was there. So even, in whatever you may believe in any spiritual belief or anything else like that, that's where we become disconnected. And sometimes because we do want to be that popular person in that room, when people go to college, that's the whole entire thing. It's part of the college scene. You're going out there to make friends. You're meeting everybody. You're trying to figure out who you are, all the good, stuff that happens in society today. But I think that's the bigger disconnect that we need to get back at, is to be able to communicate with each other. Rob, do me a favor, or DJ, sorry, bring it back up if you don't mind a comment. We need to have consistency with each other, which is very, very true. Very true. So that's a good point there. But, again, and we'll get into next week when it comes to our other halves. And I'm not talking about the wedding side of it, our friends, male, female side of the house. And then later on, we'll get into, and Jay, you just talked about it momentarily, was the intimacy side of the house. What people are afraid to say, which I think also kind of ruins relationships, because it's funny to me where someone will go out and try something with someone else and ruin what you have at the house, instead of just saying, hey, you know what? Why don't we talk about this? And or the infamous ones are always, oh, what were you watching? You must have been watching something that I know you're not supposed to be watching. And that's when you came up with something like this. Like, why couldn't I just come up with something, whatever I wanted? So those are, we'll save those for the later episodes, but next week we'll definitely get into the half of our friends that we know. Everybody has it. Family members, you name it, there's always one, no matter which way you look at it. But as we always like to wait, and towards the end of the show is the good part here by the coaches and the meme busters. And this is where it comes to, like we like to say, the BS side of the house, because the memes are just that. But there was one that was sent in, and we like to bring this one up. So I'm going to bring it up here on the screen. And this meme is, when people show you their red flags, show them your white flag and peace out. So coaches.
So we scour, social media, not like your friend doing background checks, but we do like scouring social media and, looking for those memes that kind of give us a little trigger. And we have like our 3 categories when we get amped up, when we find these memes. The category 1 is it spiritual bypassing, or category 2 is toxic positivity, or category number 3 is just bad advice.
Just bad advice.
Just because there's, we know we're all on technology, and some of these memes, people will read that, they'll think it's gospel. They're like, oh, that's my therapy for the day. And they'll read something like this one. Pull it up again, guys.
Yeah, and keep in mind, one of the things that we do when we catch these memes on Facebook or Instagram, we look at like the comments, not only read through the comments and is it connecting with people? Is it not connecting with people? But also just the sheer number of comments can be absolutely amazing. One more time, guys. Sorry, I was talking during the.
So this one we chose because, we're talking about relationships and dating. And a big buzz phrase that's driving me crazy is red flags, red flags, red flags.
So when people show you their red flags, definitely one piece we want to bust.
That's piece 1.
Show them your white flag and peace out, which is quitting, giving up, walking away, claiming toxicity, and dismantling them from your life. So those 2 pieces, the red flags. One of the things, obviously, that we've all talked about tonight is the fact that if somebody behaves a certain way, and we may not have gotten into this level of detail, but somebody behaves a certain way, they're behaving for themselves. We are then interpreting what that behavior means to us
with our own beliefs and
Exactly.
our own judgments. Like, are we bringing our own baggage from past relationships into this present circumstance?
So what
Yeah.
a red
And
so
then calling it a red flag?
yeah, so what a red flag is nothing. It's our interpretation of someone else's behavior. Now, it could be right. It could be dead on. It could be absolutely, the warning that this person is probably, a serial killer and you're just the next victim.
Right. And we're not talking about red flags, abuse or things like
No,
that.
those are
right.
Obvious.
But
Right.
but it is just that, believing in it, when you read a meme like this and you begin to put value behind the idea of, oh, wow, yeah, when I see red flags, I got to remember to get out.
Peace out.
Perhaps it's better to use curiosity. Why am I feeling that this is a red flag? What is it that makes me believe that? What is it about myself? And why is always walking away not a good strategy? Because you can't get connected if you're not there.
And if you're always walking away from things that are triggering you, that's a lot of walking.
Absolutely.
I'm not for all that walking. It's exhausting.
It is.
So,
And it's a-
Let's have a conversation
Exactly.
with
So
yourself and perhaps the other person. Hey, I noticed you did this and this. The story I'm telling myself about why you did this is that, and have a conversation. Get vulnerable. And if they're still like, well, it is this and that, then at least you can part as friends.
you've defined it a bit.
You've defined
So
it.
what is this one? Is
Is
it?
it spiritual bypassing, toxic
No.
positivity, or just bad advice?
I'd say again,
Just
bad advice.
Just bad advice. A little bit of spiritual bypassing. I always think when people are walking away, it's a little bit of bypassing, but we'll put it in the bad advice for you.
Cool.
No, it's true. And I would have to agree with you there. And see, there's so many things that, again, as we talked about communications tonight, there's so many different little conversations can spawn off. We get into whole and end up going to bonus hour number 2 and talk about different things, but we're going to save it for further episodes because we want to make sure that we get everything involved here. And again, for those who tuned in tonight, just so you know, and everyone who's downloading the audio side from the house, by the way, thanks to everyone who tuned in from overseas, whether it's in the middle of the night or middle of the day and you're downloading the audio, we really do appreciate it. And we thank you so much for along here with the stateside. We got about 20 more states to go before we're nationwide altogether. So we're halfway there with 30 out of 50 states, which is great to see as well, along with South America. But, we're going to get into that conversation next week about what we're going to feel as far as with our friends. But I think Mr. Perez, Gia, and myself, there's one comment that came in here by Chris. I'm going to go back to that one because Dylan Turn beat Red on this one. And so we have to find out who Mrs. Redmond is.
She was a girl that I liked in high school, and we'll just say it didn't turn out very well. So, yeah, it was a communicational thing, I promise. It just didn't turn out well. And, we obviously live and learn. And obviously I've grown since that experience. So, I think that's the great thing about bad, relationships or things that have happened and where you may think somebody likes you and maybe they turn away from you. You're able to grow from it and, grow as a person and also as a person in relationships. So I've been able to grow from that a lot.
Awesome. That's amazing,
That's
man.
beautiful.
Seriously cool.
Always sex on the path.
It's what life is all about because you have to have fun no matter what. I used to deal with a lot of stress before. And once I moved down here, I tried to invite 80% positivity, 20% negativity, because unfortunately there's bills to pay, people that sometimes don't agree with you and other stuff, but you try to spin it around to make it feel better. And if you don't, then do you walk away? But when you walk away, is that conversation there before you walked away? Because you just can't, strike yourself away from a conversation without actually communicating with that person. So good conversation tonight. I can't see what's going to happen come here next week. Gia, if you would like, and if Mr. Perez would like as well, if you'd like to come on camera come next week, you're more than welcome to come back next week if you like.
Thank you. I'll be here.
All right.
All right.
No problem. Because your input, I like the input from last week. It was really great, and that's why you're here. And we're hoping to hear from Grant sometimes too. I hope Grant is okay. And good wishes to Grant out there in the UK. But Dylan, the youngest lad in the room, we hope that you learn a valuable lesson. And when we get into the adult portion of the conversations, just wear your earmuffs and everything else will be just fine. Yeah. But no, I kid around with Dylan. Dylan, by the way, I will say, and it's funny because as we talked about communication, he can, when it comes down to it, Dylan, by far a great broadcaster. And he's one of those guys that if he were in a relationship, this is how smooth he could be. His girlfriend could be right here. I could be just on the other side. And my girlfriend could be on the other side of Dylan could call a basketball game while having a conversation with his girlfriend, with us, and then flip it back and just say, okay, that's the end of the game. That's how smooth that he is. So that's him. He does an amazing job. So Dylan, you, my friend, do an exceptional job. I appreciate you always being on here with us. And like you said, yes, you've opened up a lot more since the very start. And for that, I applaud you because it's sometimes not easy with how crazy we get on the sports side of the house, but it's good to see that you've opened up a lot. And Nick, hopefully we'll be back here from Clemson University soon, the whole entire gang. But that's another great show. Thank you for everyone who tuned in tonight. We do appreciate it. From the lovely coaches out there in the Bahamas. I'm super jealous, but it's okay because our weather is fantastic. Yes. So yes. I'm dying to see Blue Waters, but we got to make that happen. At one point or another, we have to do something where we're going to creatively be together. And I think it would be tons of fun just to see, like the social experiment and see what's going on. Dylan, we'll have to get a permission slip from your agent, a permission slip from the Blue Jays, and I don't know, maybe a permission slip from your parents. Because again, you're 18, so we got to make sure that we get you overseas. Oh no, because now you're an adult 18. So
I'm gonna say I'm actually 19, Angel. I got you.
You gotta go with it. Every week I keep telling you the same thing. Just go with it. Don't tell people your true age. Oh boy, that's okay, Dylan. You'll learn one of these days. But no, listen, I love the kid to death because he's such a great guy and it's so much fun to even have gotten to know Dylan. It's a lot of fun. But to everyone, thank you for tuning in. We'll be right back here again come next week, next Tuesday. So check us out. Again, if you download the show, we do appreciate it. And share it with your friends, by all means. That way they can learn something new. Again, this is not your average, typical psychiatric type show. This is where we get to learn a little bit about each other and a little bit about you. And with that all being said, we hope you enjoy the rest of your night, and we will see you all again come next week.